Happy Sunday. We're back. It's major time, which is huge. And of course, everyone's in absolute shambles, as I think nobody had Rare Atom going through. I'm joking, but I think a lot of people had them 0-3 at least. I'm sure some Chinese fans had them 3-0. But no, that's been a crazy story. But before we get into all that, obviously we have to thank the members who make this show slightly better. Because we used to say possible, but obviously we ran the show prior to membership being a thing. And we're probably sad enough to do this every Sunday, no matter what. So here we are. Thank you to the members, though, for helping support the channel, helping us invest in things like uploading episodes to Spotify and other little details like that without the members wouldn't be possible. So we are very happy for that. Yeah, members get access to interviews, behind-the-scenes content, prospect demos, and opinion polls. They get to vote on stuff, which is pretty cool. I keep saying this, and I promise I will at some point actually do this, because I have tried and it failed. There will be another tier of membership opening. Last time I tried it, the website crashed. So I haven't tried it again since, but I will. And hopefully we can get that up and going. So yeah, that's that out of the way. Quack, you got anything to promo? I know you probably do. But
I've started writing a bit again. We're back on, if you're Swedish, you can go to espotmedia.se, where I write some stuff more about the industry side of esports, actually, which is quite interesting. Together with Dennis Sandén, if you know who that is. You probably do if you're Swedish.
Sandén?
No, not Sandén, the Danish player. No.
Shame.
Or Sander, the guy who basically runs all of the Dust 2 sites. Neither of those two. A different guy.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So recently I did an interview with Pani regarding Eastplay, the new matchmaking platform. Dennis has put out some big stuff about Tele2 and DreamHack and various sponsorships. And I'm working on something with another actor, like a big company who invests in a lot in esports. Also, while I'm here, thank you for the tip. I have set up the good mic now, and hopefully this should be a lot easier on the ears than.
Does the bad mic disconnect? Because it's just still there.
Oh yeah, no, it's just part of my headset.
Oh, okay, because mine on my headset, I can pop it out. This does.
I can push it in. Yeah, I can do that.
That looks better. It's worse, but it's definitely better.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything else to promo. I have. I now have a professional email. If you wanna email me about business inquiries, you can now email me at contact@quack.se.
This guy, all that work.
That's a promo for the industry people. Yeah.
Just to set up one email. But okay, let's get into the actual topics. And of course, this week, I promised last week it would be happening today. It's the member Q&A. We're going to start off with a pair of questions from Munster, coach of FlyQuest Red. Because he did ask a question last week, so he thought, I'll ask 2 questions this week, and honestly, that's fine. We're generally not very restrictive with the number of questions members can ask. Obviously, taking the piss is not advised, but this is okay.
More the merrier.
Yeah, Munster. First question, pretty simple. And I know you're going to have some views on this, so I'll let you lead on this. Are you guys pro-RMRs or not? I know you are a big fan of local, regional stuff.
Yes,
you probably do like the RMR system.
I was a bit undecided when they brought the change in, because they did expand to 32 teams, which I thought was a good change. I'm not sure I like the extra Swiss stage, but I do like having more teams going to the major. But and then I was kind of like, yeah, okay, we're gonna get most of the teams to go through are probably gonna go through anyway. So I was like, yeah. More competitive actual major here and there. But then it's also like then you watch these RMRs like this year, and it did feel a bit like, I don't know if maybe I'm just caught in the social media hype, if you can say that, around the melancholy of RMRs. But it did feel a little bit like, wow, it's actually kind of sad. This the last RMR we're definitely the last major qualifier we're gonna watch at least for a while, because Valve can absolutely renege on this and go back. But it's for now, this is supposed to be the last major qualifier, and that felt a bit like, no, I would probably like to keep them now that I'm watching it go. So I'm pro RMRs. I think it was just cool. I think that Counter-Strike is a bit too volatile to just say that like your current ranking is your level. Especially with the way, at least now, it is definitely more like, now that we do have sort of partnership stuff, and like you don't really get invites as much on merit as you are supposed to do in the Valve ranking. It's probably going to take another half year until we really reach that point where like everybody who has a high ranking is there on merit. But yeah, it is just, I think it's a bit of a shame. I think it's a bit too volatile to say that like, yeah, these guys have been the best over the season, but this one team is better right now. Like, and they won't show up in the ranking. They won't do that. That team right now is Passion. Like, we're probably going to talk about them later. But like, they wouldn't have made it through under the RMR system, and that's been a wonderful story. Like, that's been amazing. So under the new system, Passion would not have made it through. And I like RMRs. I would have liked to keep RMRs, and I hope they come back at some point. Maybe in a slightly different format. I mean, if we do have the 32-team major, I would hope that we could do something else rather than have 3 Swiss stages all leading into one another. But and then maybe the RMRs wouldn't have to be another Swiss stage, because if you had to go through potentially 5 Swiss stages, because we had the European close qualifier as well. If you had to go through 5 Swiss stages to get to the major playoffs, that would be kind of brutal. But yeah,
I'm done with Swiss stages, to be honest. Like,
I'm on a different thing.
BO1 Swiss, like, no, obviously we have deciders just done at BO3, but I'm done with BO1s in CS2. I say it pretty much every other week at this point. Every time I sit through a bunch of BO1s, I'm like, just give me a best of 3. The maps are so quick. What's the point? But yeah, anyway, the idea of RMRs, I'm kind of mixed on it, because I think I don't see them as having immense value in EU. If a ranking system's done properly and the circuit truly has ways for teams to go up and down based on merit. But for regions like Asia, the RMR was a great way for other people to see a lot of Asian teams they never would otherwise. Like, you really, if you think about the smaller, less developed, and with less high-end talent type regions, you only get to hear, typically, the names like Atox and RMR. If you're not watching the, like ECL Asia, you're not hearing these names. And very few people do watch those games. So for a lot of people, it can be really eye-opening. I think it's interesting to see those teams play, get an understanding of what the competition's like, why we consider it like, oh, crazy, Linvision managed to qualify for Pro League this time, but we expect at the RMRs, like, at the major every time, we expect the Asian representative to be Mongols. Like, why is that? Why did this sort of thing happen? It does introduce a lot of people to that side of our scene, what's the word I'm looking for? Of the ecosystem. So I think they have some value on that front, but I don't want to get carried away or fall in love with the Passion UA story of being like, oh, look what the open qualifier does. Look at what having all these things like actually opens up, the chance for a team to prove that, yeah, they've grinded it out. They've been forced to play tier 3 comps, but look, they were secretly tier 1 all along. Like, no, 99.9% of teams, even Passion UA, I don't have them making it through this stage. Like, 2-1 is insane. Are they 2-1 or are they 1-2? They are 2-1, right?
They're 2-1. And I'm going to get to that a bit later on.
I'll be impressed if they make it through, but genuinely shocked. And that's pretty much the case for every team that makes that sort of ultra deep run from way down in the scene all the way up here. Because whilst they were impressive online, I don't think if we looked at the rankings prior to everything being locked in, they were not a team that ranked high enough to actually make it. But they probably would have, should they have continued that form by the time we get to the next major. You know, we're talking, they basically jumped the queue a bit to show off their hype. So I don't know. I'm generally okay with whatever system comes out, as long as when I watch the top 8 of the major, I'm not crying at how embarrassing the CS is. Because that's what happened in Paris, realistically. Paris was embarrassing to watch. Genuinely ugly CS played by teams that really shouldn't have been there. And it soured the experience a lot. So Sure, the other extremity is, the default major, like Astralis in London.
Mm-hmm.
Not a damn second of doubt. The team who played the best CS and lapped everyone won the event. Obviously, both of those things can lead to a lot of lackluster Counter-Strike, but
yes,
yeah, I'm not ever too worried about these sorts of things, as long as I know that, or as long as I believe the fact that we are doing this to try to get the best 8 teams in the playoffs for the biggest tournament of the year, the one that brings in the 2 million viewers, the one where the majority of people on Twitch are here to watch Counter-Strike. If that's the good Counter-Strike being played, fuck around with the system as much as you want. Change things up. Undo changes. Do whatever. But play the best of 3s. And get me a good top 8.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think that the major is wider than just that. I think it is very important for those teams who don't stand a chance for the playoffs. Like, especially with the monetary incentive that just qualifying has. Like, it's interesting because we did talk a bit about that. Like, I think it was for Copenhagen. Some people were very positive to this and some people were very negative to this. How the RMR is so important that some teams go in to make the RMR and they go in to make the major and then they just completely switch off because once they have done that, they're finished. Like they've done their thing. And that's a payout. Like that's a payout for a team who are like they don't stand a chance of making playoffs. They maybe don't even stand a chance of making the top 16, but like they don't care about how far they make it. They just want to make it as far as they can. And like the barrier that they want to get over is the major. And like some people said that was negative because it's like it puts a lot of emphasis on a small event played in the studio with no crowd, which a lot of people might not even watch. Some other people for this major, for example, that was much more of a positive narrative where they were like, the RMR is such an emotional, it's such an intense event just for that reason, where like that's why we should keep it. So I've actually seen both sides of that a little bit, but I do think like that's why I like the 32 team expansion to what is the major, because that brings the monetary incentive down to teams who maybe like the monetary benefit into more teams, which I think is better. Like more money to more teams. Like that's I think that's just a positive in that sense. But makes it easier as well to break into that tier 1 layer as well. If you are the 31st best team in the world, you're probably not getting invites to all of these like big PGL lands all year round. You're not doing that, but you do get a major invite, and there you get a chance to like properly boost your ranking heading into the next season. I think that's going to be a pretty cool thing. The RMR was sort of an even wider thing for that, but I'm not sure with a 32 team major. I'm not sure we need qualifiers. I also like them in a sense. So like I'm kind of torn on this, but I also do I do want the best teams to play for the win. As much as it is kind of fun to see, like, it's fun in a sense to see Gamer Legion and Into the Breach and Monty make major playoffs. Like, that's fun. But it's also like in the back of your head, it's kind of bittersweet because like nice for these guys. You watch the games, it's like cool that they made it this far. You see the upsets, and it's like that was a good upset. But then it's also like particularly with the Swiss system and the way it's been seeded and stuff, the feeling I always get around these things is like, yeah, that was cool, but you didn't deserve it. Like you didn't. Like, yes, you had one upset. I don't think that's enough to make major semis. Like that's sort of the feeling I get with all of these, with the Paris major, for example. That's about like what's yeah, that's what some people said about the Paris majors. Like, oh, they earned it. Yeah, they earned it. They had the upset games. They won the games. Like, you can't really argue with that. I think you can because, in this case, teams didn't even play teams that they were underdogs against. Like, they had maybe one impressive upset, and that was it. And then they made semifinals. That's a bit meh. Like, that's very meh. So I don't know. This was a bit of a tangent, but I in general, I'm pro qualifiers. I like qualifiers. I think we should have more qualifiers because that's what's in RMRs. I will say, since we're getting rid of them, I do hope that, and I've said this before, I hope the coverage like of next season and the seasons before that, because we're still gonna have RMRs. Like we're still gonna have key events where like you can see, oh, if Gamer Legion do well at this event, they have a good chance of making a high enough ranking to make it into the major. That's going to be the RMR for Gamer Legion, pretty much, whatever that event ends up being or whatever. And I hope that like the people who cover Counter-Strike, like, the stuff that I had the chance to do sometimes is, I hope that we can sort of, help people see that, to like really highlight that, like, yes, Gamer Legion have the chance to make playoffs in a PGL LAN, but also if they do, they will jump in the ranking and they will make it into the major. Like if we can cover that, because then we won't really lose anything in that case, because we still get the emotion like, oh, we know we qualified for the major.
Yeah, and I was about to touch on that because yes, we will. Like we will. I mean, the nerds at HLTV. It's not a diss. We are all nerds. We'll also be aware of how the rankings work and cover this stuff. So it's not. And the people who gave a fuck before will give a fuck now. Like people who followed the RMR before will follow the people or follow the right sources to understand how it works now. And we'll have the implication of games in their mind. So I think from that side of things, it will be covered. I'm not worried about that. I just think, the whole having one massive event dictate people's financial futures and oftentimes make them neglect the deeper events in the scene to the point where, like, you know, there are some teams that just disband the millisecond they don't make a major. Like this sort of terrible investment system where people just throw salaries at someone until they boom or bust. Just always felt a bit silly. And I hope we do find a healthier place. Or maybe it's just a smaller place. Maybe it's just, you know, smaller numbers, but more reasonable, sustainable ones. In comes Falcons. Anyway, a second question from Munster. Outside of CS, what's our favorite game? Each of us. I'm gonna go first. I think I'm gonna have to break this down by gaming era for me, because there are very distinct changes in my life that matter here. Because as a kid, I never had a console that plugs into a TV ever, like until I was like, well, not ever, until I was 12. At which point I got a Nintendo Wii, which is basically a fitness tool with some shitty games. Gonna be honest, majority of the games on the Nintendo Wii were garbage. So for me, I'd have to say the best game I had growing up, my favorite game, the game I played in the car, even when consoles changed, backwards compatibility was an important issue for me, so that I could keep playing this game on the move, and to the point where I still have this game on my phone on an emulator. It's Pokemon Emerald. Like for me, that was the game growing up. I had it in French because my grandparents bought it for me one Christmas. So I didn't know the names. No, I didn't know the names of half the Pokemon because people would say something. I'd be like, "Huh, Gyarados? Ah, you mean Liviator?" Like, you know, I knew the French names for stuff. I mean, obviously that's an example from a different game, but that's a famous example I got wrong at school once because I had all the Pokemon games pretty much in French. But
holy shit! Sorry, I'm just looking this up. It's some of them are like just sound more French. Like you have Bulbasaur. You have Bulbasaur. That's just Bulbizarre.
Yeah. Others are just completely different words, so you can get real confused as a little kid talking to your friends about something when you have entirely different names. But all my god,
Jigglypuff is Rondoudou.
See, how am I supposed to know that? And I didn't watch the anime or anything, so I had these names. So Pokemon Emerald was my game. Loved that game. I still remember the first save file I had a level 90-something Blaziken just carrying me through everything. The classic, you know, one Pokemon run that every child goes through. But then eventually, when I was in my mid-teens, I got a PC. That's the reason I suck at Counter-Strike now. I basically didn't have PC games until far too late. And so hitting my prime at 20 or something, being like LEM, playing CSGO with my friends, that's about as good as it got skill-wise. But the game that I think I've enjoyed the most playing on PC, it isn't CS. And again, I'm going to exclude other competitive games because I'm just a competitive person. So my perception of games quality is distorted. If there's a ranking system and I can beat people, I will play 1,000 hours of that game, pretty much. But for me, the game that I actually went back to the single player over and over again is Skyrim. Yeah, I'm not original. I'm not different. I played Stealth Archer 3 times before figuring out you could actually do other things in Skyrim as well. I'm not going to pretend to be an original. I just really love that game. And yeah, since playing a bunch of other like sort of medieval type games, the combat system is terrible. And that's okay. There are so many flaws with that game. But it's got so much heart. in the way that it's terrible and janky and kind of silly, like a lot of the Elder Scrolls games are. Like, there's one Elder Scroll game, I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head in terms of its name, but it's literally as a map the size of the United Kingdom you can run through. Why? At this time, everything looked like a block with some rough shading. Why would the map that big?
That would have been Oblivion, I think.
No, it's Daggerfall, I think. No, because this was the one game they procedurally generated the entire thing, but then gave it a set seed, so everyone's game actually generated the same. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But yeah, these are the sorts of things that make Elder Scrolls games lovable. And for me, Skyrim was that game on PC. Like, a number of times it'd be like around Christmas, I'm like, oh, I'm home a lot, got a lot of free time. Let's boot up Skyrim. And that's one of my favorite games. So yeah, Quack. Outside of CS, what do you love?
I think I also have a bunch of different eras because I also played a lot of Pokemon when I was young. I played Heart Gold, pretty much only Heart Gold. I think I had a bunch of them like pirated on a like small disc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one of these like you could get a DS disc and you can put like 40 games on it, and like we just pirated. Like today, I know it was piracy, but like it was just my dad doing it, and I was like 8, and I was like, I didn't know it. Like suddenly, just I had all of these games, and I was like, cool. And then he was like, don't tell anybody about this.
Don't worry. The first few games I played on PC, I played them torrented before I ever bought them because I didn't have the money to buy them. So like I played Skyrim torrented first.
Yeah. But yes, I had that. I played a lot of hardcore. That game I completed several times, and then I had like I wanted to do a save where like I caught every shiny, and like I did fucking everything. So I also kind of grew up on that. I played a lot of Minecraft early on. That was like the only PC game I played before I was like 13, I think. So that's definitely high up there. And then I played Team Fortress 2 that led into CS, but then I also kind of spread out because like I had an era when I was playing a lot of like technical, like kind of nerdy technical games. Like some of them you would do like build stuff. Like I played a lot of Kerbal Space Program. Played a lot of Space Engineers and that kind of thing with my friends, which is also a great game. You should play Space Engineers if you haven't. Played some like War Thunder. Like I love War Thunder as well. And then I also like I have to mention a lot of them because I can't really pick it. Like if I'm going off playtime, it's going to be Gary's mod because there was an era of like 18 months when I played on like RP servers in Gmod. And that was just really fun because that was like I think it would have been when I was around 14, 15, and like like I owe a lot of my like personal development, like my developing social skills and stuff. I owe a lot of that to like for pretty much the first time in my life interacting with people who weren't my friends to begin with on Gmod, like playing RP servers. And I still talk to some people from that time.
Most social Swede ever. Video games, strangers taught me how to talk to humans.
Yeah, but that was also like I actually for a while I had a British accent because I played on a British Gary's mod server, and like that was just like the most English I'd ever spoken in my life at that point, and all of them were like just English. But then eventually I accepted my Scandinavian accent and I stuck with that. I played a lot of Payday 2. I played a lot of GTA. Like I think if I have to pick a favorite, a favorite game all time, I might just go Gmod just because it was so much fun at the time. But like today, I just can't boot up Gmod and have the same kind of fun. So like all time is probably Gmod. Like I think that's probably where I've spent the most time and I've had the most fun. But if you ask me like all time, if I'm not gonna play CS, I'm gonna boot something else up. It might just genuinely be like Minecraft or like it might be Minecraft. Or Payday. Actually, Payday 2 was a ridiculous amount of fun. So, like, if you can get a party together on Payday 2, that is some of the most fun you can have in PC gaming. Top 3, Gmod, Payday 2, and Pokemon Heart Gold.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Right, next question. Which player would you bring from the past to today in their prime to dominate CS2? And I'm going to take some interpretation with this and say... Yeah, no. I think that's fine. There's nothing to elaborate on there. I think Quack, take it any way you want. I've got an idea in my mind of a few players that I'd like. Some obvious, some less obvious. But I want to see where you go with this. Which Swede are you bringing into?
No Swede. I have a very obvious answer, and this is not the interpretation that the question answer was probably going for. But I just
Oh,
want
no.
simple. Like I just want Prime
Yeah,
Simple to come.
that is the
Yeah,
most obvious. Yeah.
yeah. I just want Prime Simple because I just think that it would make it so interesting. Like if Simple just carried on, like if you just carried on into CS2, and like we would genuinely have like Zaiwu, Monesi, Simple, Donk. Like that would be the four-way battle at the top. Nico, on the edge of it. And I just think, oh, it could have been so epic if like imagine Navi's second major win in Copenhagen if they had Simple instead of Wonderful. Like imagine how it would feel going into Shanghai if they had Simple instead of Wonderful. Imagine like all of these different things where like Simple just wasn't around. Like it could have been so cool. It could have been so fucking cool. So I just think it's kind of a shame. If I can bring Simple back into his like, I would say 2021 is his prime. So if I could take 2021 Simple, bring him into CS2, I think he would dominate, and I think he would be quite amazing because I do think like the Monesi we have today, like Zaibu is just Zaibu. I think Zaibu is pretty much where he has been for the past 3 years, fairly constantly. But I think the Monesi we have right now could go toe to toe with Prime Simple. I think Donk on a good day could go toe to toe. I think Nico as well is still there, where like on his day, like on his Stockholm final, he can go toe to toe. Like it just could have been so cool to like. I feel like we were kind of robbed of a year or two without Simple, and that's just a shame. So yeah, I'm curious to see where you take it because I assume you've taken someone from the olden ages.
I have gone further back in time. My first, because I'm trying to think through some other options, but the first one I kind of want to suggest is actually interesting because I'm going based on the question. I'm going to apply this to kind of the meta we have right now of the hard swinging opening players being very much like hard entry stars. So I think a great option to bring to now would be some entry fraggers or aggressive riflers from the past who, never really got their fair shake as superstars with crazy aim because they never were cerebral enough to make it in 1.6 and Source as like the star of the team. Because back then it was the Forest, who's more of a trader, Get Right, a lurker, Shocks, a multi-tool who kind of did a combination of those things. So I'd be curious to see what, firstly, a prime Freiburg would look like. Because he was, all the stories seem to indicate he was mechanically really nuts and uber aggressive, and he was a hard entry in NIP during their prime, during their best days. A player that I think might actually be even better mechanically, at least from everything I've seen, is Scream. And Scream did play some hard entries early in his career. So I think I'd want to bring him back, I think, in his prime. I mean, Scream in his prime was an interesting thing because obviously we all know him for essentially memes. They know me for my one taps, the mouse advert, their stream highlights, all the French drama. But right now, especially, think about where the French scene is. There's not big teams with big clicks and big, dramatic bullshit. Scream could probably come in. He might even be able to play in Vitality, play some star roles, and maybe they do return to being the actually French roster that they could have been. But no, that's a player. Those are the kinds of players I was thinking about when I read the question. But unfortunately, the most obvious answer and the most correct answer, especially even factoring in the aggro meta, is Kenny S.
Probably, yeah.
It's Kenny S. If you can give me any more, even a 30-second glimpse extra of prime Kenny S, I will take it. There is nothing more beautiful than the magic stick. Absolutely dicking down some Swedes on Dust 2. There's nothing better.
How many show matches has Kenny has actually played? Because I feel like he shows up in a lot of these.
He plays a lot of show matches, but
yeah,
not really real Counter-Strike, is it?
Yeah, you could probably get that. Hang on, this is gonna be like 10 years. This is gonna be 10 years after NIP won in Cologne. I'm wondering if like PGL have like secretly planned. They probably haven't, but I'm wondering if like PGL have done like a prime like 2014 NIP versus 2014 whatever French team they want to put together, kind of show match. They probably
Yeah.
haven't, because it's probably going to be like the best players from the playoffs versus Chinese players, or something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be some Chinese players. Like,
Yeah,
in
it's
the
gonna be
Shanghai show match, I bloody hope they put some Chinese players on stage.
like what I hope they do is they do the one they did from the Asia Championship, where they basically put like one Chinese desk member on both teams, and then one Chinese player on both teams, and then one English broadcast member on both teams, and then one star player and like one other fucker, and then they just do like a bunch of like, you have power ups and you have like trap cards and you have like, you have to play with your left hand, like you have to put your hands like this, so like yeah, do that, like, because they did. I don't know if you remember, but they did that for the show match. You had like
I do.
They had like, they just play a match, and then they had like random mutators, like the CT side can now plant the bomb, like they just did stuff like that, and then that was actually kind of fun. But yeah. Simple.
Okay. Yeah. The final question comes from. This guy's a bit weird. Quacky? Quakey? I don't know. We'll call him Duck Boy. He asked, "What's your favorite way to play CS at the moment?" Now, seeing as you fucking asked this question, I'm going to answer it first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So personally, you know, I've been bringing out the Xbox controller recently, and just the quick scopes are just hitting different. You know, now that I've switched back to controller. I mean, I was a mouse and keyboard guy for a while, but you just don't get that same like tactile kind of feel, that response, that push resist from the thumbstick that you get on a mouse and keyboard. So I think I am becoming more of an Xbox controller guy again. Yeah, teammates get frustrated watching me trying to 180 as I slowly just spin round. But that's their fault for not covering my flank, you know. I said I'm a one-way player. I go forward only. They don't seem to get that concept, so yeah. Might have to make the switch back at some point if I really want to go pro. But for now, Xbox controller is the way.
All right. That was not what I intended, but I also do know that you.
Thankfully, you're here to explain what the hell your question
is. I'm here
is.
to explain I meant matchmaking platform. I meant
Premier, because I'm garbage. Yeah. There's no cheaters. And I'm not going to pretend anyone who beats me is a cheater, unlike you, Reddit.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you play mostly Premier, so this is maybe lost on you, but this is more of a topical one because we have had, just recently, we've had 2 big developments, and for my fellow Swedes, we have a new platform to play on, and also Faceit launched a new thing, which I haven't tried yet. I was hoping I could do it this week, but I haven't been able to. Yeah, like there's a bunch of different matchmaking alternatives now. And Faceit launched like their big 2.0 thing. A bunch of Smurfs got banned. I saw something like 40,000 Smurfs got banned in like a day or something like that on Faceit. Yeah, I mean, so your answer is Premier. Do you have like why? Yeah, why wouldn't you play say Faceit, for example?
Honestly, at some point for a long time I was using the Faceit client, not like because I liked it, but just because I had more friends on there. I had some friends who never kept their matchmaking rank where it should have been, so it was just more practical. This is mostly during Go. But I stopped using it because they started requiring me to use the AC, and that involved installing that shit, updating that shit, restarting my PC a bunch, and half the time it just never worked. So I gave up and told them to eat it because I didn't really care enough to maintain a Faceit rank. I wonder what my Faceit rank is.
It doesn't decline.
Yeah, that's what I want to check. Like,
you might have been reset at some point.
Yeah, I might have done. Oh, I'm still level 5, lol.
Oh. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I play some Faceit. I used to play some matchmaking, but what I've basically replaced, because that was just with my friends who would lag the fuck out when using the Faceit anti-cheat for some reason.
It had a lot of problems historically.
Yeah, but like especially with CS2, it's like sometimes when you play CS, you peek someone and like your game freezes as soon as you spot them, and something with their models. And I had some friends where like that just got really exacerbated when running the Faceit anti-cheat, so they just couldn't play Faceit. But the alternative we have now is a Swedish platform, which I am paid to do their social media. So this is not even a shill though, because I just love the platform. I just think it's fucking amazing. They have Acros anti-cheat. They verify using government ID, and that's required. and it's only Swedish, and it's fucking great. All of the Swedes are on here now. Esportal is dead finally, and they use. I mean, I've had zero problems playing on this, and it's really fun. It's really fucking fun. So yeah, I've never played as much CS. I haven't played as much CS as I do now in years, and it's literally just because finally there's a platform I actually enjoy playing on. Even when I lose, it's just fun because nobody's an asshole. Like if you're an asshole, you get banned. So like everybody's just fine. So like even if I
play
lose,
I couldn't play this. Even I mean, I don't speak Swedish, and I don't want to give any gaming platform my government ID because what kind of nanny state?
They don't see your ID. It's a third-party vendor, and you sign it digitally.
Okay.
This is
okay.
somebody who knows your government ID either way verifies that you are you, and then they just pass an encrypted signature to them. They never read your stuff.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, wow, all that other stuff. But yes, also, yeah, I don't like platforms that hand out bans on the basis of behavior. So I'm like, I like it that people get to be pieces of shit. And I like the fact that they can ruin their team. I love that. Like,
this is basically like, you're being a dick to women. That's like the point where they ban. Like,
you're a dick to women, then you get
you're
banned.
extremely racist. Right. That's when you get a ban. You don't get a ban for saying somebody's bad at the game.
So if I call someone I don't want to get fucking censored on my own show because I have adverts. But if I communicated using mannerisms and expressions that I would to my fellow teammates in matchmaking, I mean, sorry, if someone speaks like a language I don't understand all game, then gets mad at me for not commenting, I'm going to call them a slurry of things. For obvious reasons. Because
I think you'd be fine. Unless they really took it to a head.
Well, I got banned straight away from Rainbow Six for calling someone the word I love to say, but always get demonetized for saying it, because he team killed me. And I got banned. So, I have my history with these kinds of services, these kinds of wannabe nannies who are like, no, you can't say the naughty words. So I don't like that conceptually.
My favorite feature, they ban by doing a scan on like your Steam account on different platforms. So if you have a ban on Faceit or Esportal or a back ban or something, they just insta-ban you permanently from Eastplay. And you just can't go back. And there's so many... Since I run the Twitter account, there's a whole fucking bunch of DMs about like, sorry, give me a second chance, please. I know I cheated in the past, but I won't do it again, I swear. It's like, I just want to play with my friends. It's like, you cheated. Like, permaban. Be gone.
Yeah, there's certain things that are good about independent services, but for me, as I said, I always say this on posts on Reddit, and I always get downvoted by the 3 people who pretend to be like 25k elo. If you are under, at this point, I'm pretty sure it's extended up to like 17, 18k, maybe even 20k. If you're sub that on Premier and you're complaining about cheaters, you're just Delulu, hun. Like, you're not actually having cheating problems. Just play Premier until you're actually good. Then you can start whining, or quite easily go play any of these free-to-play services that are external, because for me, it's such a simple problem to solve. It's just mostly grow up and solve your own issues. But all right, let's move on to the actual Counter-Strike news for the week, because we have this small thing called the Major happening. It is in Shanghai, which, if you didn't know, is in China. That's for the American viewers out there. We're going to start with... I want to lead off on this because it annoyed me this morning. So yes, the big headline, it's going to be on the thumbnail, of course. The Pickems are dead. Everyone's Pickems are ruined. Like 99% of people, I swear, had Rare Atom going 0-3. Very few people had... I think a lot of people still hedge their bets on the 3-0 by putting weaker teams. But Liquid and Mongols go through. But I think the thing we need to focus on right now is that 0-3. Because everyone was convinced Rare Atom were going straight home. Especially after they lose the first 2 BO1s. And they end up matched up with a European team. And especially one Fnatic with players of the caliber they have. It looked pretty dire. It looked like everyone was going to be right. Fnatic proceeded to play... I mean, I watched... The only map I was able to watch in its entirety, because I woke up too late for map 1 and was in the shower for map 3, because map 3 was so fast. But map 2 I watched pretty much in its entirety. And, oh my god, did Fnatic play some terrible CS. And it was made worse by the fact that Rare Atom, not only did they able to read pretty much everything Fnatic were doing, they also used better utility than Fnatic. They had better team play than Fnatic. Fnatic just played horrible, horrible CS. And so they deserve to go out 0-3. Like, it's not like, oh, you got caught off by, like, you know, you look at the stats, you think, oh my god, Child King, crazy numbers, Li Hang, huge. Half their kills were with flash assists. It was impeccable utility thrown left, right, and center, and they just got shut down. So I was not I was disappointed to see Fnatic go out just because I'm a fan of Matisse. I still think Blame F is a really solid, tier 1 star level rifler. But based on the way this team actually as a group played in that match, yeah, I'm not sad. You need to play much better CS than this. And this has been a kind of a running theme, I think, for Fnatic, where if the two extreme points of the T side especially, but even on CT side it can be true, if BlameF and Mattis in their respective duties are not balling out of control, it's so difficult to find something positive about Fnatic. Even with the new Orpa, who I thought should have been a straight upgrade, and has been, I think, in some ways, just in terms of not being as chaotic. There's always this sort of, in terms of the playstyle, the way they execute their game plan, the way they approach rounds, there's always been something a bit weak, disconnected, off pace, off rhythm about it. And it looks incredibly bad here, where you have things like BlameF trying to take an opening fight on Banana. He dies. Matisse tries to find a kill out Boiler. He dies. There's no one really looking in the right directions to help. No one's throwing useful util. And then you should end up with those final 3 players, Body, Crims, and Nork. And no offense, this is not the trio you want in a 3v5. So there's just a real problem in the Coach IGL duo right now. And if this team wants to succeed, because I think they can, I think between those two riflers, they got the top-end rifle talent to go compete. I mean, on the double swing, we had, I think, Hawker just put them as a top 5 rifle duo in the world. I was not sure if it was Hawker or Yumi. It was Yumi's pick. And whilst I thought that was a bit hyperbolic, I get why they said it. Because they have that talent. So this is a roster that needs to address those concerns in order to progress. I don't know how extreme they want to go with it in terms of how many cuts they want to make, but I've seen some people float the suggestion of cutting Cater at this point. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I would also prefer to see Body gone as well. I think this team needs to restructure to make more sense and build on for next season.
I'm actually going to choose not to talk too much about Fnatic because that is something I have later on, but or at least what they should do, because that's something I have later on. But they've, I think they just played a bad game. I put them 3-0 because I thought, oh, they can just roll this. Like, they can just blame Mattis, just go hard.
That feels like the win-con, right? Like, the only win-con is the super aggressive, or the opening side of their rifle group, who are also their star riflers, shit on people. Like, just go out, brag, and you'll win games just on the momentum. But no. Yeah.
But then I did think that, maybe Nock shows up at the right time. Like, he's due like a good time at this point. He's overdue. Like, something's gonna happen. Like, Body might like be decent, and then no, just nothing happened. BlameF played a good game. Mattis played a half decent game, and everybody else was shit, and nothing happened.
Mattis was a banger for 2 maps. Mattis was outstanding in Ancient and Inferno. He was good for the first roughly 14 rounds. So he played 37 rounds of pretty damn elite Counter-Strike. And then everything went to absolute shite. So over the course of the series, his rating's good, but he was only good for those 37 rounds, in my estimation.
Yeah, and that was the only point he was good during this entire major, because the previous 2 maps versus Wildcarding Cloud9, they didn't really do shit. Like, realistically, they should beat Wildcard. Like, I'm kind of happy they didn't, because it's Susp and Fuzi, and I honestly prefer them winning over Crimson Hawk, to be honest. But they definitely should have won that game. And Cloud9, I'd say that's a 50-50 game. I'd probably put Fnatic and Cloud9 in similar situations right now, like fallen tier 1 teams who have tried to rebuild and come back. But Cloud9 just swept them. So
more things make sense for Cloud9, the calling, the structure. They have more players who can actually step up. because they don't just have Heavy God. Icy's been actually damn, look at Icy's numbers. Holy crap,
Icy had a
Icy's
really
been
good first day.
crazy this event
Yeah.
so far. But also Axile has been like a reasonable third star. Like they can say they've got a third star.
Yeah, that is what they need, because that's always been one thing you could say about Cloud9 is that Axile isn't showing up anymore, and that was a shame. But versus Fnatic was his only good map. He was still kind of batting as Liquid and batting as Pain.
Yeah, but I'm talking also going further back to the the RMRs and all that stuff. He has been a reasonable third star for this team. Not outstanding, not in his prime form, but at least something they can rely on.
Yeah, it's been up. It's been up and down, but yeah, he definitely has that. He can show that and did show that. But yeah, Fnatic, they probably just back to the drawing board. I'm not sure where, like, I saw very spread out thoughts about this, because I thought, well, they have the talent, and like this is the point where like a lot of teams who have looked kind of iffy across the season can suddenly show up. And I was like, I'm gonna take a gamble. I'm gonna say Fnatic go 3-0, just because I think there's a chance that BlameF just goes so hard that there's nothing to put against it. But then I also saw some people say that, like, no, I actually put Fnatic 0-3 because I did think they were gonna dog shit. And then I saw some other people, like, Fnatic probably should have gone through. Like, they probably should have, if we're gonna be honest. But yeah, then they just didn't show any of that. So I'm not really sure where. I saw very spread out opinions on them, and they've ended up being quite crap. Yeah, not sure what happens now, but I'm going to talk about it later.
Yeah. What is your take on this event? Like, what's your thing you want to lock in then? Like, kind of focus in on?
More of a general feeling of like, this is a very tight. Like, this has been a very tight major, because, or at least the Swiss stage, because basically everyone who was supposed to go, like, perform poorly has done quite well, and basically everyone who was supposed to be like lock-ins to do well have done quite poorly, like, or like has somewhat underperformed. Well, more or less, but like, yeah. So Mongols went 3-0. I'd say that's expected. I put them 3-0, and I would say that they have a leg up on every single team who was here right now. They either have beaten or definitely could beat every single team who was here. They ended up having quite easy games, to be honest, as well. Liquid as well should have gone 3-0, I think. They did go 3-0. Well done. But then you have, and then of course Imperial. I didn't think Imperial was going to go 0-3. I don't think they're in a particularly good spot at the moment, and they did. 3 domestic matchups even. Wow. America's matchup, all of them. They then are just everybody else. I feel like Cloud9, Complexity, Fnatic, you could argue, and VP, you could argue that they should be 1-2, but I would probably put all of them 2-1 after the first 3 rounds if I was gonna guess ahead of the major. And they are all sort of underperforming. Instead, in the 2-1, we have teams like Passion, we have Pain, who I thought wouldn't go through, we have FlyQuest, we have even Big, who I think a lot of people would have put not to do quite too well here, even if like they do have the talent, they will look good at the RMR. I think maybe some people thought they would kind of crash out here. They are still doing pretty good. Fury are doing pretty good, who some people are iffy on. Gamer Legion have done very well. Just played the qualification game just today. And then you have like Wildcard, even if they're 1-2, they played a very solid game. Close games, all of them. They did beat Fnatic. They could have beaten Liquid, to be honest. At the point that map was like, what was it, like 10-11? That's entirely winnable for them. They played overtime against Furia, which is, I mean, if you make it overtime, it's always a winnable map. They played really well. MIBR, I think, played very well for the first day when they they beat VP and then they lost to Mongols. Then they did stumble against Passion, but they're probably going to beat Rare Atom later tomorrow. And then they end up in the 2-2 series, and absolutely anything can happen because MIBR are solid. So like a lot of the teams that I think would be in the lower layer are kind of in the upper layer or are doing well. And a lot of the teams who I think would have been favorites. And what ends up happening here is that this feels very much like it could have been any other tier 2 LAN, except it's 16 teams, and it's actually kind of amazing, I think. And honestly, it's weird to say it, but this is thanks to the rule change that Valve made with the VRS ranking instead. because otherwise we probably would have had G2 and Spirit in this stage, and that would have completely changed the look of this. Because we would have had G2 and Spirit in this mix instead, and like Big would have gone through, and whoever else I'm forgetting about also would have gone through. VP, yeah, I think, or Cloud9, sorry, yeah. So yeah, I just think this is it's interesting because it's so very tight. Like I could, for basically any matchup, I think basically anybody could win, and we kind of saw it today. Even the ones that where you really think no, there's no fucking way Rare Atom beat Fnatic, they do, and it's like, yeah, there's not a single game in this stage which I think has been a given, and that's really interesting. And I hope we get the same thing for the elimination stage.
So there's not been a single game that's been a given, except for some BO3s. As soon as we get towards BO3s, things start to look more clear. Now, Fnatic, obviously, on paper, should not be losing a BO3 to Rare Atom, but at the same time, pretty much every other BO3 has gone exactly as it should. And that's kind of the point. It's kind of my complaint. I keep saying this, and I keep having to reiterate it. BO1 in MR12 is dumb and should not be played. Yes. But we're still doing it because, I don't know, I'm not some dream floating through a random American's mind, so I don't dictate how Valve run these events. Like, certain things they change make sense, certain things they leave forever pain me, but this is going to be the real test. These best of threes. Passion UA now have to win a BO3 against Gamer Legion. Pain, probably a lot of people had them going through, but now they need to beat FlyQuest, who are a team it was difficult to rate them. They were like towards the top end of the underdog section. They were just outside the top 8 of this sort of event.
Yeah, but they're also perennial chokers. They've always been like...
Yeah, I'm saying they're the underdog. That's the point.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be the favorite. No. But they are a team that's played pretty good Counter-Strike so far. So we have to just sit back and see how the BO3s play out. I think that'll clear up a lot of this. I've got a feeling some teams who maybe started 2-0 might fall all the way back down. Some teams who started 0-2 have a chance to grind all the way back up. I don't think either one of the 0-2 teams will. But hey, we'll see what Complexity can manage. They are supposed to be a team that goes through this tier. Realistically, on paper, given they have a Liege, given who they are as a brand, they should be making it out of here. Yeah. So maybe they will make it all the way back from 0-2. But that's where the more compelling Counter-Strike starts. Tomorrow, the stuff I really care about begins. And that's the BO3s to dictate who's going home, who's going through. Hopefully it's a series of good games. A team I kind of want to bring up as a team that kind of doesn't surprise me, but I think it surprised some other people. Wildcard were 8-1 to make it out this stage, which I thought was a piss take. And I'm talking about on a betting site. I mean, some sites had them 7.5-1, 8.5-1, 9-1. Stupid odds to make it through this stage. Considering their experience in terms of their IGL, the talent they have on the roster, I thought that was absurd. And they've now lost 2 games. They are 1-2. They're actually a fairly highly picked team for the 0-3 bracket. And I just want to explain to people why this is not surprising to anyone who's actually watched Wildcard play. They do have a real IGL, a real system, with structure, and legit fraggers. Jaber, the biggest concern for me has been, could he handle the nerves? Well, the first time we saw him on stage was in Atlanta. He didn't at all. Since then, he's been relatively solid. Susp is a player who's always struck me from the outside looking in as an incredibly emotionally stable guy. He's continued to deliver. I mean, the talent was apparent. His twin is still on Metasport. And to be honest, there's not that big a skill gap that separates them. In my estimation, there's almost none. They just play very different roles, different spots.
Some would probably say Adam B is the stronger player even.
That was the point, yeah. That people do think Adam B is stronger, but I don't think there's a big gap between them. Yeah. That's my point.
Yeah.
The wild card that we see at this event tomorrow at 9 a.m. gets to prove it. Like, am I right? Am I right about everything? Is Stanislaw still a legit IGL? Are these legit fraggers? If they beat Virtus Pro, they're 2-2. At that point, if they go out, those odds were ridiculous. Those odds were idiotic. Those were nonsense odds to ascribe to this team. So I just wanted to make that little point because there's a lot to talk about here. VP being in the 1-2 bracket could be a topic in itself. Losing to MIBR and Big, I mean, maybe they're expected if you know how VP play, but given the brand name, the team name, like the players, you don't expect them to be down there.
I could have put VP anywhere between 3-0 and 1-3 at this stage, to be honest, because we haven't seen a lot of good stuff out of them, but we also never really see them disappear from like the space, like where they're supposed to be. Fame has played great. Electronic actually kind of showed up, but they also lost. I would say that they shouldn't lose against MIBR, of course. I would say that they probably shouldn't lose to Big, if I'm going to be honest. That feels like a very classic matchup, VP versus Big. It's one we've seen a lot. But it's also been one which VP has the lead in, and especially the last time they played, which was online, to be fair, but still. About wildcard, I think it's a winnable game versus VP. I think, honestly, out of the games they played so far, Fnatic, Liquid, Furia, in hindsight, Fnatic was obviously, with the form Fnatic have had in this entire major, wildcard were probably the favorites, if we're going to be honest. It was at least 50-50 if we're going to be ahead of time.
In retrospect, it's now looks like it was closer.
In retrospect, across the whole opening stage, wildcard have definitely played better than Fnatic. Yes. I think some people would have said, versus Liquid was a winnable game, versus Furia was obviously a winnable game. We said this before. I think VP might be even more winnable for wildcard than these, because I just think it's gonna end up being one of those 24 round, like it's gonna be super close. I'm gonna say it's gonna be a 3-mapper, and then it kind of just depends on how that final map goes, who wins, because VP are the kind of team they just really get stuck in. Like, I feel like I don't have stats on this, but I just assume that they are the team with the highest amount of average rounds in a map, because I just feel like they're the team with like the way they play with their economic game, and like the way they play this game, they really min-max, trying to be like, they want to get to that 24th round and they want to win 13-11. Like, it's with the way they play, and I feel like
it's the VP stereotype, paid by the round.
Yeah,
right? That's what we always used to say.
Yes, paid by the round, and you can't really separate them. Like, it ends up being 1-1. They win a map and then they lose one, and it's just going to come down. It's going to come down to such fine margins that it's also going to depend a lot on which form wildcard show up with. Like, if wildcard end up having Susp keep on firing like he's been doing, I saw very good runs out of Jeba, to be honest, against Liquid. And that's something which we haven't really seen from wildcard before. Like Jeba has been. We talked about this before as well in a previous show. Jeba has been the guy who kind of disappeared for wildcard when they played on LAN, when they played here and there. Like, he shows up online in America, but once you go to the LAN, he's been a bit here nor there. Fuzi maybe activates because he hasn't been too hot so far. Like, there's a lot of things which could happen with wildcard, and if they show up with good form, I think they beat VP is my bottom line. But yeah, it's it just really depends on a lot of factors, so it's very hard to predict. But yeah, this is probably the one where they show what they're really made of, and I do hope they win. Obviously I hope they win because I love wildcard.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Is there any other team that surprised you at this event? I mean, obviously ignoring the ones we've talked about, who's been a real shock for you?
We haven't talked too much about Passion, and I think that has been a real shock for me, because I would have put them as one of those teams who do well at the RMR, qualify, and then just go out. I wouldn't say 3-0. I think they definitely would have won. If they had ended up in the 0-2 pool, I think they would have won pretty much any other opponent who would have been there. But like, I did not expect them to beat MIBR so convincingly. I probably wouldn't have expected them to beat Complexity. Like, they've just played. They came in and they were genuinely a candidate to go out like 1-3. And I probably wouldn't have put them in the final round under any circumstances. So like, for them to, and they have an excellent chance of qualifying tomorrow because they have Gamer Legion. And out of the opponents they played, Big, Complexity, MIBR, Gamer Legion is very winnable, I think, in a best of 3 for Passion UA. I'm not sure if they played the game before, but I would take Passion to win there. Yeah, they have played in the past, and Gamer Legion definitely lead the way, but that's online in CCT. And as much as Flammus was like the big guy in the RMR itself, he just posted 9 frags across 2 maps against Mongols. And they have an excellent chance of doing stuff, and that I think is a big shock. I would not have put them 2-1 after the second day under any circumstance.
I could.
You say you don't think they go through.
I don't think they could go through. I don't think they go through. Like if I played this out 100 times, I think they go through maybe 10 times. You know, I think the majority of the times this event gets played, they don't go through. But the thing of it is, the BO1s are the BO1s, and they have individual talents who can win a map. Beers played outstanding, and in a way that, honestly, he's delivered in a way he didn't in prior events quite recently, close to this. He wasn't a great fragger during the RMR. But here he's been outstanding. Chakasmo's had some insane rounds, some ridiculous clutches, USP shots. And Jambo's had his quietest event in a while, but he still had one amazing map. Just to highlight the point that they just can get it from a variety of different places. I think in the BO3s, they're going to struggle. I think Gamer Legion's going to be the better team tomorrow morning. Because Gamer Legion, I think, will have better prep done. I think they have, in terms of a rifler, it's not a question of is Flammus more talented than their riflers. It's more a question of is he better at bearing the load, the aggressive load for a team, and actually going out and win those fights they need them to win. I think he is better at that for them. And Slend, toe-to-toe with Jambo, like they're both probably raw talent. I probably have Jambo higher rated right now. And this event, they're both amongst the best AWPers.
Yeah.
So I think
Slend's slightly more experienced. Yeah.
Slend's slightly more experienced, but it's not immense. So no, I think I have Gamer Legion taking this 2-1 if I had to put an exact number on it. But no, you're right in terms of matchups they could have had. This is one of the more winnable ones.
Yes.
And there's a good chance they make it through. But it always depends on those BO1 matchups, how those go, if they can get rolling fast, because they did get some good starts on some of these games. Memory serves me correctly. They didn't make super deep comebacks, so yeah. I want to see them truly tested. Those BO3s, it's going to be the way.
It's a game we can definitely watch as well. It starts at 10 CET. So
yeah, 9. Yeah.
I'm gonna watch that. Yeah. All right. No, I think that pretty much wraps up the opening stage.
No big shocks anywhere else. I mean, Liquid beating FlyQuest in a 2-1. I mean, FlyQuest, as I said, they've played better Counter-Strike than anyone expected. I think they beat Pain tomorrow and go straight through. Like it's kind of the level they've played at. It's been impressive.
I wouldn't have. I did because we have a predictor sheet in the Discord server I'm in. I did put Liquid 2-0, but with the way these score lines are, it basically is a 2-0, except for an Inferno stumble. The final map was 13-1. So, yeah.
Well, FlyQuest picked a map and won it.
Yeah, they picked Inferno.
That's Counter-Strike. And they played a good game on a map.
Yeah. But then you look at the others, and it's like 13-9, fair win, 13-1. Oh, right.
Yeah, they got crushed on map 3, but
yeah,
it's still a 2-1. So it's not magically not.
It's still a 2-1. I'm just saying that, like. Anyway.
It doesn't change the fact they won that map. So
no.
Let's move on to our small site retakes, because I think I want you to lead off on this, because you hinted that you'd be talking about Fnatic again. What exactly is it you're suggesting?
What do they need to do? So what happens after the major is that I believe Nox loan is going to run out from Bleed, and I'm not sure they even can buy him out with how Bleed are acting right now. I think they would rather just wait for legal proceedings to carry on, and then he becomes a free agent. But if they want to carry on with Nok, they can do that. They have 2 Swedes and a Danish player. You definitely want to keep the Danish player. I think you want to keep Crims even now. I think you can't replace Crims and get something which is going to win you, which is going to put you through into the next stage of this major, just 1-for-1. I think it's time to go a little bit more Nordic, and you can replace Body, and that's where you want to go for Hooksy. And I think it's time. for that. For a Danish-Swedish team, you can keep Mattis as the star player. I think that's fine for now. But I think it's time. Body for Hooksy, I think is a perfect move, if I'm going to be honest. Because I just think that, and then you can replace the coach. You could do whatever the fuck you want with the coach. I don't know who's available. I don't know who would want to go. Honestly, I even think historically Keita has been fine. I think if you want to try something else, you can try maybe Def. M80 might be he might be willing to go. I think Def has the way M80 have played. I think Def is a viable option. Point being, I mean, really, if you want to reunite a coach IGL duo which really worked, you could do Hooksy Pita from Copenhagen Flames, because that was good. That was when they were first starting to hit their stride. Pita is available. You could make this work. But point being, I think it's time to go for the Swedish-Danish lineup with a little bit of Slovakian spice, and you end up with Hooksy replacing Body. And that's just kind of my case. I didn't want to put it in the show notes so you wouldn't be spoiled. But what do you think? I think honestly, the way Hooksy, he's been passed over for so many jobs at this point in an upper level, where I think he's either just said no or nobody's thinking about him. And I think if nobody's thinking about him, Fnatic is maybe his best possible destination at this point.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I just think my mind is fully set in terms of the way I see the future of Counter-Strike being fragging IGLs. Not necessarily that they are elite fraggers, but they can at least hold a gun and click it, in the right directions. Which Hooksy, I'm not one of those people who's going to pretend that Snax is a better fragger than him in terms of actual firepower. But he is pretty fucking horrible. He's pretty terrible.
Yes.
He's not getting lapped by Snax, but that's not exactly much of a standard, is it? So no, I think, I agree that on the tactical side, the way he approaches rounds will probably be an improvement. I'm tired of seeing Crims on this team, though, at this point. I don't give him all the credit everyone else gives him of, he plays the worst roles, therefore it's fine that he has one 1.0 rated map every 16. There are not roles bad enough to justify Crims' level of play in the majority of games I've watched for Fnatic. That's just not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I want wholesale changes. Not wholesale in terms of changing the entire team, but I'd be happy to change Coach IGL, potentially not re-sign Nork, and look for another Crims player, another Crims role type player.
I honestly think you have options here as well, though. My point of what it is time for is to go back to the Nordics. Some people said that they should have gone full Swedish. Yeah, I just don't think that was ever fully possible. I think you have some options here, though. Even then, I think you could go for Patty. I think you could go for
don't hate
some. If you want somebody else other than Knock, I think you have some options. I think you could go for somebody let me scroll through the list. I'm trying to find him. There he is. I think you could try Lucky. You could try him. You could try Slime if you want to take a big gamble.
Okay, we're getting stupid now.
Yeah, we're getting stupid. You could go for if you want another IGL, you could go for Kristen. If you want to replace Crims, you could honestly, it's not exactly where he's been playing now, but he's played these positions in the past. I think Zyphon is an impossible. I don't know.
Yeah, if I'm bringing back Hooksy, bring back Zyphon might be an idea, because Zyphon was he had Roy and Yabi on that team.
Yep.
Zyphon did then fill appropriately, and
he was the Crims guy, I think, more or less.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, T-side had some differences, but that was just more Hooksy using his pieces than anything else. So no, I think that'd be not the worst idea. But look, I prefer the Patty move because he's younger, better fragger, that sort of thing. I just think there's a lot to think about in terms of how they actually do it. But I think the core idea has to be you need to change the way rounds are structured. Hence, IGL and coach, probably the two places I'd look for some upgrades.
Yep. I just think it's time to go a bit more Nordic. It's time to do it. If you can't do full Swedish, like you even have Hampus is out there. Hampus could have been cool. Like you can get him. But if you want to go for, I think Hooksy is like, he is probably the best free agent IGL out there right now. I think you have Patty, who has shown good stuff this year. And then everybody kind of seemingly forgot about him. Like you have
yeah.
options.
Bird from Sky has a team, so no, yeah. Hooksy's probably the best
IGL. Bird from Sky, also an option.
Danish.
Yeah.
Great at maximizing teams. Well, let's see.
Regali previously played for Fnatic.
He did, and there's a reason he's not there now. It didn't go very well.
Yeah, it didn't go very well.
He is talented.
Go for Audix.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Teach
him Danish.
That's we're getting too far off. Too far off the basis here.
Way too far off.
I want to do a quick small site retake on an event that's ongoing and that most people don't give a single toss about, but I kind of do because I think it's important in terms of figuring out who's on the rise, who's going to be a big deal next season for Tier 2 watchers. And that's ESEA Advanced Season 51 is currently in the process of playoffs. Yeah, it's playoffs.
Yes.
So a few teams to watch out for here. Firstly, a team that's been surprising a lot of people. Already made it far deeper than I think most would ever expect. Going by the name Nuclear Tigerez, with an average age of 19.2. They're a Russian team, or one Belarusian, whatever, who have taken some decent wins at this level especially. They don't really come around very often. The last time they did anything was Winline Pro League. But they're a group of grinders, a young team. There's some talents in there to keep an eye on. You've got teams like Copenhagen Wolves, their new roster that they've essentially rebuilt. This time around Andu, but also bringing in Magilla and Era, since the last time I assume most people have ever heard of them. With Tapaway,
they've also brought in a couple of more, but then kicked them. Like they've had such rapid fire changes.
There's been more changes, but this is essentially the final roster they've gone with. So they've been interesting to follow. The one-win roster with the Academy kids. Look, they lost their series to Copenhagen Wolves. But anyone who watched my demo review for Andu that came out this week on the members side will have seen him getting his shit absolutely pushed in by Cronus on a couple of rounds, who's a one-win Academy player. He's 20, formerly Academy player, now on the main team, who looks really sharp. Fireflux competing here. All these names are things names you should be getting used to, getting aware of, just to follow in the future. So that's why I want to point this out. There's some cool little teams in here, and it's worth keeping an eye on as it progresses to see who's going to be truly threatening in those lower level cups for next season and try to build something special. Yeah, you got your eye on any of these teams?
Oh, for sure. I'm cautiously eyeing BC Game once again because as much as Guardian is absolutely not a good option for,
he is very washed.
It is, and that's showing in this event. It is interesting to see Jacob, Tatsanito, and Lekro and like go for this project. If there wasn't even a tinge of faith in it, so Jacob has played great, Tatsanito has played great, Lekro obviously the caller, Prime Taps played great, and they've had some close-ish games. If I'm looking at this playoffs, they played a 2-1 against Viperio. Game they should win. They lost 1-2 against 500, which is probably expected as well, for sure. But yeah. And now they're gonna end up playing against Kono, who. Oh no, do they have their full lineup? Because on the page it says they're playing with the coach. It says they're playing with Defrayed.
I don't know if they'll have their full lineup for this game. They shouldn't be.
That's a decent game. Kono sort of on the rise, but I think like pound for pound, I think BC Game should probably take them. But
I mean, the best player on the server will, in terms of raw talent, is Kensizor for Kono. Yeah. But I mean, BC Game have so many washed up players that it kind of negates the Jacob of it all. In terms of firepower, there's a very, I think it's rather bad. It kind of favors Kono, but No, these are important games because Kono, yeah, they have young players. They do want to make that next step up. BC Game are trying to prove themselves. Jacob, honestly, just constantly fragging no matter what level you put him in is kind of ridiculous. But obviously coming down here, he's been putting up numbers in advanced.
Yep.
So I don't know.
You obviously have the Spirit Academy of it all.
Yep, they're playing
actually,
500 today. Is that today at 3 o'clock?
Yeah, probably should be today.
Yeah, it's today at 3 o'clock. 500 Spirit Academy. Kyosuke. The one prospect everyone in my comments has ever fucking heard of and therefore suggests for every roster move. Referring to my Nico video that's got 7k views. Stop suggesting Kyosuke. Stop.
Do you know what this is? I think that just comes from the fact that there was the rumor that Vitality looked at Donk and passed him over. Because now they think that the next time it happens, everybody should go for them. Because nobody had thought of Vitality getting Donk before that rumor that they inquired about him, but then said no. Before that rumor came out, which might be true or maybe not. Anyway, it's in the public eye. Nobody had thought about Donk being on a non-Russian team. Like nobody had thought about that.
No.
But now, since that rumor has come out, people think, oh, the next time it happens, it's happening again. Kyusuke is the next guy. He should be on Vitality. Like he should be on G2. He should be on Mouse. He should be everywhere. Like he should be in all of these international top tier teams because they think it's happening again. And that's just a bit wild. Anyway, I was looking for another team. So there is another team I'm thinking about. Where are they? I'm looking for Fire Flux. Where have they gone? There they are. They have actually won. They beat Cubics. Soulfly still playing a great game. They did lose to Cybershock, so they are going to play against the winner between Gen 1 and Nexus. Gen 1 apparently playing with Jax, so they're probably going to play Nexus. Have a chance of making it deep, I think. To be honest, the other side of this bracket is not too difficult. It's the Nuclear Tigres, and then probably Kono, if I'm gonna pick one out of those four there. So, and then it's a winnable game. So, interesting. Because I didn't pay much attention to this season at all. LNG also doing very well. Still up in the upper bracket, in the upper semis.
Yep.
Just 3 wins away from winning advanced.
Yep, LNG have been very dangerous. Those of you who remember my last prospect of the week, Cleo. Yep, playing for LNG. And they are now playing Cybershock, another team you need to be familiar with.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
On there as well.
Yeah, very important to follow this sort of event, despite it not being the biggest, most prestigious.
Yeah.
Right. The Eternal Shuffle. Everyone enters, but no one ever leaves. The Eternal Shuffle. Players always changing hands, changing teams. And we start with some cuts. A lot of cuts on this list. Mostly because it's the post-major stuff is happening. You know, teams that lost out at the RMR, they're not going to wait around for the major to finish just to make their cuts. So we already have BetBoom dropping Nafany and Chiron. Honestly, I kind of get it. The Chiron part of it, he's just never really found his spot. Never had the roles I think that look comfortable for him. Nafany just didn't get the team working. There's enough talent on this team for them to be better than this. And so, yeah, I understand these subtractions. I just need to find out who's coming in. I don't believe these are great moves until I see who comes in. I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. We talked about this last week. We literally said Chiron's probably getting cut, and we said there's an argument for cutting Nafany as well. I was a little bit surprised, but I did see the argument for doing it. Yeah. We mostly spoke about this last week. If you're wondering, what our hopes for what might have been 2 weeks ago even. If you're wondering what we hope, what I think or hope is going to happen to BetBoom, you can just watch last week's episode. But it's going to be interesting, I think.
It will be. It will be. A lot of talent in the Russian scene, so they've got a lot of places they can go with this move. We'll see who they end up going with. 9 Pandas have cut Glowing and Idis Balance. Honestly, fair enough. Idis Balance is an AWPer. That's just not been good enough. No. And Glowing, she needs to make space. They need to change things up. They've got, again, they're a team with too much talent to not be productive, to not be winning games. So they've kept their IGL. They've got Dealer and Result alongside him. And they're going to look for some replacements. I like the idea of them, if they can go get tried for the AWP spot, I'd be super into it. Tried looked amazing when I watched him on WW. That'd be a big upgrade for them.
Yeah, I like that. I like that because I do think you have a lot of options right now. For once, I feel like we are not out of, but we have an unusually low amount of Russian oppers just out there, like Russian teenage oppers.
Oh,
Before
we
used
have
to
loads.
have. We do have, but it's not like they're not a given anymore because most of them are already kind of locked up. But just looking through, like Sorty is kind of locked up. Khan isn't exactly a guaranteed success. Deco, we're gonna get to that. He's kind of retired. So then you sort of end up with like the like Art Frost is around. I don't know what Perivision's economics are like if they can stand against the buyout from Nine Pandas. I forget who's hopping on Spirit Academy. Yeah, okay. There's a couple of options, but yeah, but then you still have like the Encilio of it, where like I think it's FPS, who's old. And then you have the Rush B, who I forget who's hopping.
Topo.
No, he's on Amkel. Who's on Rush B?
Oh, on Rush B, it's doesn't matter because he's kind of bad, but I think.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think you need to go quite far down to find like the slam dunk offers. Like you have the Tried, who you tell me is really good.
You've Tried, you have Molodoy, you have Topo's
Molodoy
decent.
well.
Who's it AWPing on Cybershock? He's not bad.
I forgot.
It's Lovicus, I believe. No, it's Phenomen. Torn between the two. Oh yeah, they're the two young guys. Phenomen's been really good in some of the games I've seen. So there's a lot of options. There's a lot of players who are more talented or have more to give right now than iDisbalance is the point. So it's not going to be hard for them to upgrade.
Oh yeah. Like replacing iDisbalance is not hard, but
we don't need
to
go on somebody some whole tangent about Russian AWPing. But yes,
I just mean if you want Nine Pandas to make a move, which is going to put them into the proper space, like the proper move upwards. I'm not sure you have like a Deco lying around. Somebody who would be like a slam.
I don't think there's any AWPer who's just going to slam dunk it.
No, but
they have so much rifle talent. They should be able to upgrade. They should be able to move in. Like, they're already 31st in the world without having, in my eyes, a competent AWP. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, fair.
It's not a ridiculous take to have them as a tier 1 team next year.
We just used to have a lot of options for these. We used to have like Deco and then like 4 more who were like, yeah, put these into like a top 20 team and they're going to do well. But it's we're not quite that year. We're not quite there. But that was also the time when Zorti was on Forza. You had like, Deco was on 1 win. Yeah, anyway.
Okay. Aurora, Deco is taking a break. So Aurora minus Deco taking a break. So it's not really a cut. More he is benching himself, but it's still a gap for them to try and fill.
He has the option to return. I think they said if he wants to come back, he can come back. But yeah.
So we'll see how it takes. I believe he's streaming, right? Wasn't that the story? He's going to stream full time.
Yeah, it was like 5 months ago now. Somebody leaked that after the major, Deco is going to retire, basically. But I don't know. I think somebody also said he's married, and like it's like I think maybe he just doesn't want to. It might have been the reason for Resalt leaving. He did say that like, oh, I left because I wanted to progress, not to regress, and like it basically implied that Aurora were doing nothing. And I think maybe the Deco part of it all was part of it.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. I'm not sure about that one. But Sashi have cut Quez and replaced him with Altex, which is it's not going to move the needle massively for me on this team, but it is I think in my eyes a talent upgrade. Altex being the more talented player. I just don't see it as that massive of a change. I still think Sashi are going to be the same old plucky old Sashi. Like good structure, great prep, mysteriously great vision on their coach, and then they're going to win some games thanks to that, but they're not going to be a real threat to promote into tier 1 because they just don't have that depth of talent. They don't have the stars to really back it up.
No, Altex is an upgrade. This move was telegraphed because when after the close qualifier and after Altex was benched, they played with Altex instead of Quez for a couple of games. And I mean, I did think like you couldn't get Altex at that point because he was locked up with as a sub for TSM, so you couldn't play with Altex at the RMR. So they basically just carried on with Quest, but they did play with him for a while early on, and I was like, oh, they're probably gonna get Altex after the thing. Like that's what's gonna happen, and they ended up doing it. Yeah, it's a talent upgrade. I think Quest isn't the best. Just isn't the best. Altex much more of a talent I would put, into a team who can maybe have upset games. It's actually already had upset games with Quest, so I'm not going to say that this puts them into tier 1 contention, but it definitely brings them closer. More than anything, I think Sashi as an esports brand just needs a rebrand, and then that might be the catalyst to make them tier 1, because that logo is just fucking...
So the logo's the problem, is it?
Yeah, the logo is the problem, because this one is better than the old one they had. I'm gonna find the old one they had because that was literally just like a slab of meat. Yeah, it was a slab of meat with 2 hands going like this. That was the Sashi Esports logo before this, because
That's awesome.
but it was like cartoonish. It was kind of weird. Go back to the meat thing in that case, but make it cool. What it is that the owner of the team is Dr. Ren, who basically is the son of a very rich Danish meat importer who basically finances this entire thing. And I've heard a lot of things about this Dr. Ren guy. Patty was once kicked, somewhat famously in Denmark, but not really outside of Denmark. Famously, Patty was kicked from this team because he went out and got a sandwich at the boot camp where they were at. He went out and bought a sandwich, and then Dr. Ren got really pissed off on the day after he was benched or something like that. There's a Dust2DK article about it. He is supposedly, like, everything I've heard, everything I've heard and read about this guy, he is a spoiled rich kid running a CS team, which is semi-sponsored by a meat company, like a meat importing company. So
okay,
I don't. It's like I don't know what to make of this team, because it feels like the way the org is, and like the way everything is, the way of it all, like the optics of it all, the way everything looks. It looks like this team could just like cut the 3 best players overnight because they did something like, but it's also like, so I don't trust them. Anyway, that's a tangent. You should go read the Dust2DK article, which is probably called something about Patty and a sandwich. But you should go read that because it's hilarious. It's actually hilarious.
Yeah. Bit odd, but yeah, no, this team, I don't have that much faith in. Tyloo have brought Alman into the roster. This makes everyone laugh because we know Alman's in and out of this roster. They cut, is it Jamyoung from the roster? Yeah. And so they've gone back to having a player who's going to be a dedicated IGL, I believe, who's actually not just a fragger.
Yep.
It feels dumb, but it might be the best thing for them. It's just, we all know this is a bit of a meme at this point. Tyloo, whatever. Finally, Permitter have cut the entire roster.
I only put this in because they actually have some players who are somewhat interesting. They're benched officially. As I think, honestly, I think we've said this before. Everybody in Poland just has an infinite Permitta contract, but then they just play on other teams. Like that seems what it is. The way everybody just goes in and out of this team. But yeah, the roster which has been benched is, and some of them have moved on to like reform Los Cogutos.
Yeah, 3 of them are now listed under Los Cogutos.
Yes, it's Tomiko. The ones I think are interesting in particular is Tomiko, Friend, and Beanox, who I think have been the guys who are like have looked very good in the past. So, what do you make of them? I know you like Tomiko. Tomiko, you've talked about before.
I mean, he's shown some good stuff in the past. That's about all I can say, though. The roster's not crazy talented. There's not a bunch of players that are going to make moves into other teams. They're just kind of there for the majority of the players.
Beanox actually was the only guy doing really good on this Permitta team. In like 98 maps, he's 115, and nobody else is really close.
Yeah, that's cool. But Tomiko is the only player I see as having a real ceiling. And even then, what I've seen the last 3 months, roughly, on this Permitta team, maybe going back even further, hasn't been that promising. So I'm a bit, you can have them if you want them, someone else in Poland, but I don't think there's going to be a huge squabble for these guys.
No.
And that brings us to the final segment of the show. It's prospects of the week.
We're a bit tired at this point. I can sense.
I mean, I'm sick, like literally sick. So I'm just trying to blast through this. Then I'll take some paracetamol and keep vibing. But yeah, prospect of the week. I'm going to start this with Andu. Speaking of players playing in advanced, I could have picked a player from the opening stage, but I decided no. You know what? We are the one show that talks about tier 2. Let's keep it up. And so he had a great week with Copenhagen Wolves, finally playing some of his spots again. From what I can tell, finally being the star of a team. Because that's part of the reason why he ended up leaving Gamer Legion. He wasn't happy, essentially playing second fiddle to Flammers. He thought those spots, those positions, those responsibilities were his. I assume he tried, at least, because he was there for a little bit. Tried to be a good team player. Didn't work out. And now he's ended up with this group. And has played a really strong week. Now, he's trying to essentially bring them to relevance, make them one of the tier 2 mainstays, which they kind of were in the last season. But not with any real consistency and never delivering big results. So Andu's come in, 19 years old, very aggressive, very talented rifler. Hoping he can do some big things on this team, because there's some pieces I like on here. Like, Shane is still a solid piece. He's still a solid player. McGill been playing, not like outstanding fragging CS, but has played decently in his roles from what I've watched so far. And I know some people like Era a lot more than I do. So I think there's somewhere for this team to go. And Andu playing like this is going to be key for it.
Yeah. Andu is a good player. Like, he definitely deserved to be on that main Gamer Legion roster. And I think he played a pretty good game for periods of it. So I do like that he has found sort of a new home. And Copenhagen Wolves is very interesting to me. It's very interesting because this is also a team which I think has a lot of resources to spend. Again, this is this is a bit of reporting which was done by Dust2 US. The Copenhagen Wolves brand, when they restarted now, the brand was basically bought by another spoiled rich kid, somebody who is about my age, who comes from a family of real estate people who are like millionaires. And he basically just bought the brand and he started up a team. He is American, which led to some of the Dust2 US guys calling this team the New Jersey Wolves. But they've just had such a big rotation of players. And some of them are like decently big names where I can only assume they're getting paid a decent salary to be on this team. So I'm also really interested because they have some talents, they have some veteran experience, they have some players who definitely could be, or have had some players who definitely could be on better teams. So I'm very interested in what this is. But Andu being here and doing well is important for them. I think that's very important for what they're trying to do. But then they also have like players who they have Magila, who by all accounts looks to be a pretty good talent. He hasn't done too well on Copenhagen Wolves so far, but before this, he looked pretty good. Heard a lot of good stuff about him. They have Shane, who used to be, he's like the fallen one out of the old prime Mouse NXT core. We have Era. I rate Era. I think he's a decent opera. He's not going to be the guy who breaks these guys into the tier 1 space, but for where they're at, I think Era is at least has the talent to be solid. I think Tapaware is good, very good. Then they've had players like Fessor, they've had players like Saucel, they've had players like Sense, who basically come straight off the back of like a paid gig, like a good salaried gig, just going straight into this team. And they just do varyingly degrees of well or bad, and then they leave after a while. So it's a very interesting project to follow, if for no other reason that I'm just wondering what's going on. But yeah, Andu. He's back to playing the positions he wants to, and he's doing it well, I think. Carry on. I want to see Andu succeed, because I think Andu is really good. Even before he was in Gamer Legion, I think he had like periods on Sync where, which is like the big team out of Estonia. It's the
Estonian team, yeah.
The Estonian team, yeah. But yeah, he played with guys like Fates. He played with guys like Geo for a while. Sikta is one of those guys who kind of shows up in this scene. Comms as well. We've talked about him in the past. It's yeah, he has a history of being a good player, and like he's still young enough to like sort of possibly shine through. He's only 19. Yeah, I hope things go well for Copenhagen Wolves. That it would be really nice for them to score like a top 4 at this advanced, which they are maybe going to manage if they actually. Sorry, they might have already. No, wait, they're top 6 at least, I think. Yeah, it would be nice if they could score at least a top 4. They're probably playing Spirit Academy in the next game, which is rough. But if they win that, that's like, wow, kind of a watershed.
Yeah, it's a pretty big endorsement.
Yeah. Anyway, my pick is much more maybe in the public eye. I've picked Susp. We've talked about him already. He's had an amazing major opening stage, which is honestly like, we're almost starting to run out of reasons to say that he isn't already established. Like, this is a sort of performance which puts you in, which puts you in a tier 1 conversation, I think. Because before you could say, well, he's playing domestically, well, he's playing in Metasport, they don't really show up here and there. Like, if you sign Susp, it's going to be a gamble. When you do this well at an opening stage, you start to become like, yeah, this guy could hang in tier 1. And of course, like, the stage isn't over. We're going to see what happens in the VP game. But as we said, they haven't played a single team where they were anywhere near favorites. They've been pretty big underdogs for all of these games. In hindsight, probably not against Fnatic, but like heading into that game, they were underdogs. He's played good for all of them. Even the Fnatic game. The Fnatic game is his worst game. He's 0.99, but he was still like 16-13. That's fine in a 13-11. He's not too far behind Jayba and Sonic in the metrics that matter. And he was huge against Liquid. Like, keeping them alive in that game was basically like, there was one particular round he just 4K spray down on Banana. Like, how the fuck are you doing that in a buy round? 4K spray down on Banana, and like he just 22-16 in that map. Basically the only guy who did anything which gave him a chance of winning that map. Furia 136 again. If there was anybody who was really contributing to making them have a chance of winning that map, it was Susp. 97 ADR 136, 27-22 in a 16-14. Like, yeah, best in the server. Nobody on Furia matched him. It's just, that's the sort of performance which is really like, he's teetering on the edge where next week maybe we couldn't even call him a prospect anymore. I think, like, because at that point he's established. I'd say so he's an option for a lot of teams, and I hope he keeps being that. And I'm also, that's another game which is at a reasonable time for European viewers tomorrow, which I'm also going to watch. It happens at the same time as the Game Religion Passion game. And I do hope they win. I hope they win. Susp, team, please win. Please win against VP. Please.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm obviously a big...
Dear Donald Trump, if you can hear us, please, Donald Trump.
I'm a big Susp guy. Sussy P, Suspicious P.
Hang on, sorry. You know where the name Susp comes from. It comes from...
Yeah, you've told me 100 times, but as someone...
You just said you're a big Susp guy.
I don't give a shit. I still don't care about the Swedish meaning of his name. I speak English, read English. This is a gaming community. It's in English. He is Suspicious P. But no, he's a fragger. He's a real rifler. Like, he's not one of those guys I'm worried about when it comes to the stages. He's not one of those guys I'm worried will wilt away. And he showed this here. Like, just absolutely fragging out. He's not going to get... Obviously, he's not been getting recently, I think, the same credit as like some other Swedish talents, just because he is in NA. But he's played more LANs than them. I think, honestly, showed more against better opponents than they have been able to. So I think sometimes gets a bit overlooked.
For sure.
And he's been really solid here. Hope he can keep it up tomorrow, get them the win.
I'd say outside of tier 1, he is the best Swedish player at the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd probably say that, period. I don't think you
provable level, yeah.
Like at the moment, Susp is definitely, like, I'd put him above Nilo for that. I'd put him above Adam B for that. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that wraps up the show. Thanks everyone for watching. If you made it this far, you're my hero. Yeah, remember to like and sub. Leave a comment telling us your thoughts on anything we've brought up, really. The major's the big one. And yeah.
Thanks for the questions.
Yes, thanks again to the members who asked questions. Remember, sub for more content. And if you want to become a member, get access to the Q&A that happens every month, get access to all the behind-the-scenes content, the right to vote, all this other stuff. Yeah, it's down below. It's £2 a month. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.